We're sitting here at Line Creek Brewing. So if you start looking around, you're watching us on YouTube, you're going to see a bunch of tanks and taps and everything else. And there's a story that goes along with that. We've dropped a couple of episodes. You can check those out. There was a brew that was made to support Hunter 7 Foundation and a lot of local nonprofits. They invited us here. We took the offer, and we're just proud to be a part of it. So I'm Robert, and I'm joined by co-host
Paul Martinez, everybody.
And Kyle Neal. How are you guys?
So today we're joined by two gentlemen, Dylan and RJ. Thanks so much for coming to this episode. This is in our show because I mean it's been what 6 years in the making.
Yeah,
Feels like it.
Yeah, long time coming. Long time coming. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into you guys' background and story, and then we're gonna talk about what you guys currently do and such. But so I want to take it back to let's see, it was we started in 2015 and. I think our first episode was dropped like December. We, I think, linked up like first part of 2016, if I'm not mistaken, on social media. And right around that same time frame, Kobe, who now is the founder of Uncanna, that does, kind of holistic products and stuff like that. He was owning a company at that time frame called Slate Operations. And Slate Operations was doing T-shirts and apparel, like a lot of guys. If you weren't doing coffee, we're doing T-shirts. That seemed to be the two.
That's right, one or the other.
Two main income drivers at that point for veterans, for sure.
Right.
And so anyway, he was doing that, and I remember a T-shirt dropping that you guys did to help support veteran organizations or promote them, and put all the logos on the back of the T-shirt. And Mentors for Military being brand new, and I wanted to get some exposure, I reached out to all you guys, and I'm like, hey, man, I want to be part of the Cool Kids Club. I want to be on the back of that T-shirt the next time you guys do it. And, of course, you guys were appeasing me. Yeah, no problem. We'll make that happen. Let's make it work. And then you guys never did it again.
Yeah, that's due to us not knowing anything about anything. Really, we were just, again, it started out, me and my brother at the time, my brother had gotten out of First Bat around that time frame. I think he was making his way down to Florida, and I was still there. That was when I kind of started listening to you guys, started listening to the podcast. I didn't even know what a podcast was in 2016, really. But
nor did I when we started it up, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the very beginning of our social media presence. I mean, me and my brother didn't, not until very recently, have our own personal stuff or any of that. We just kind of stayed off of it. I think Facebook Messenger for deployments maybe, and that's about as far as it went. So even getting into meeting guys like Kobe and you guys, and I was like, I don't even know if this is real. Like we're just selling shirts, and we should make a page so nobody takes our stuff. Like that's about as much thought as I put into it.
But you guys had these cool black and white photos and everything too that was different than everybody else. Yeah.
Now dig the black and white.
Yeah. Now Jocko does the same thing, but I mean, I think you guys were one of the originals. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it really, I don't even really know how that started. I think, again, some people give us credit. I've heard people like, hey, whoever does y'all's branding, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really ever claim to know what I'm doing. Black and white originally was like, hey, what's timeless, what's tough, what's never going to go out of style.
Right.
I mean, you can't beat black and white. You know what I mean?
No, you don't have to worry about the lighting or anything.
Exactly. That's exactly it. I was like, man, it makes everybody look a little bit better. I don't have to worry about Photoshop or any of this stuff. I can just black and white it and throw it up there. And
I think it's gritty and nostalgic, and that all came from Connor and Dylan.
Yeah,
for sure.
And eventually I was gonna say, well, eventually we've kind of just leaned into that over the years, and that's kind of our staple now somehow. So we'll roll with it.
No, it definitely works. And I think when we do it, it's not nearly as powerful as you guys because you started it off at the very beginning. So when people come to your page, it's known. Brigands is black and white photos.
Yeah. I think a lot of that came from my brother and I say it all the time is sometimes good guys don't wear white. That's like the biggest thing is, it's from the old Minor Threat song from that's how we grew up skating and punk music and all that. And that's what they have the song. And sometimes good guys don't wear white. You can look rough around the edges, but you can be the good guy in the room, and kind of leaned into that. So
in 2016, I think when we first started connecting, I don't know right then if we started trying to see if you guys could get on the podcast, but it was a period of time, sometime I know thereafter, where we just kind of hinted around it, but you guys went dark for a period of time. And you told the whole, nation is like, hey, we're going to be checking out, and you did for like, I want to say year and a half.
Yeah,
or more?
about a year and a half, almost closer to 2 years, really. Because we started in 2015. Again, I was still in battalion. My brother had just gotten out, and it started off. It was just T-shirts that were cool for the boys. That's all it was. It was, hey, we can make these T-shirts for $10. Let's see if somebody can throw us a 20 so we can buy some more after that. And it was just walking into the cough at Deco, and then the S1 or the S shop wanted some, and then it just kind of, we thought, hey, maybe we have something here, but we had no care to I didn't have the creative drive to come out with a new T-shirt every month and do all of this different stuff. And we kept it simple. We had a little success. We brought it to social media, and then I ended up getting out around the late 2016 timeframe, and it was like, your life kind of gets turned upside down a little bit. Sure. And I was making my way back down to Florida and started working construction and going to college, and my life was just very different. And this whole Brigands T-shirt thing was like, all right, what are we doing?
It's like a hobby.
Yeah, it's like, sure, we've got 3,000, 2,000 followers on social media, but I'm not sure really what that means. And let's just take a break until we have a true direction and, we have more of a purpose. So we did go dark.
I totally thought it was because you guys deployed.
No, that would have been a much better story. But again, it is just lack of knowledge and really just unbeknownst to us what we were going to end up doing.
Geez, totally killed the whole story, man. I'm like, I was thinking
this might help a little bit. So I ended up meeting these guys around, was it 16?
Yeah, probably 16, 17.
So I ended up meeting them, and I think it was either you or Connor was wearing this shirt, like with the diamond in the front. And I was like, oh, man, that's a badass shirt. Like, where do I get one? And they're like, oh, actually, we make them. And I was like, okay, well, how does it work? And they're like, oh, we haven't made them in a while.
But not anymore.
Yeah. We're trying to get through fire school. We're kind of taking a break from it, but when we pick back up, you can get one. So they get through fire school, they get on their departments, and now they're in a shift where they're like on 1 day, 2 days off. And I'm like, okay, like, you guys gonna start again? And they're like, no. And I was like, hey, man. And throughout that time frame, I was like, yeah, why'd you guys even start that? And they started telling me what it means. Like, hey, basically if you're wearing this shirt, it started at First Bat, and some of the other battalions started asking for them, and it kind of blew up a little bit. And we kind of told the guys, hey, man, if you're wearing the shirt, you're the hardest guy, in the room. You're working harder than anybody, or at least you're doing your best. Like if you walk by a piece of trash, you don't, God, this place is a mess. No, you're the guy who picks it up and puts it away, and you're the guy that sets the example, exceeds the standards. You don't meet any standards. Yeah. Like those standards are their standards. Our standards are you always exceed. So I just love the story, and when they got done with fire school, that's when I really started putting the screws to him. Like, dude, I want a shirt. I'm serious. Yeah. And then we just started talking about what that meant to him. And I just remember being I was like, hey, man, if you need, do you guys even have a business license? Like, do you guys know what you're doing? And they were like, a business license? We haven't, we just make T-shirts. And I was like, all right, well, I'll tell you what. I'll get you a business license. Like, how about if I help you get this back off the ground? And we just started talking, and they talked it over, obviously being brothers from Texas. And then we just sat down one time and like, yeah, let's do this. Like, all three of us kind of looked at each other like, are you in?
I mean, I guess it doesn't really seem all that crazy. Somebody from a battalion background, that was in regiment or that was in the military, it's like, yeah, of course, that's everyone. But I think the big part of what kind of flipped the switch in me and Connor's head was when we got out and I was working on a job site doing construction, and I'm in college, and I felt like all of those people I just took for granted being surrounded by. Yeah. I'm like, where'd they all go? Like, they're all gone. I got my brother here, and that's it. And it's like, man, it just that integrity driven, that high octane lifestyle where you're just hungry for everything, no matter what it is. That became very, it was very aware that was a rare thing, and we kind of took it for granted when we were there. You just assume everybody thinks that way until they don't. And then, that's when we were like, man, we have to really push this. And there are, not to say that those people don't exist, because that's where we're making our buck right now, is really finding those people and bringing them together, because they're out there. I find them in the fire service. I find them in any profession, but it's kind of sounding the alarm via Brigands Co. to be like, hey, let's build this. If you're out there, let's get together, let's get a shirt on your back and do some good. So
Did you guys start off with your tagline of by any means necessary in the beginning, or when did that come about?
yeah, that was
Because I can't remember. Yeah.
That was really when RJ came on and we started. So when RJ came on, it was really, I think he downplays it a little bit. It was really him just hitting us with the officer vibe that was like, listen, here's my presentation.
Yeah.
He hit us up on a Zoom call, and I'm like, dude, you're my friend. Like, just call. Like, dude, he hit us with like, what are you guys doing? You said you were gonna wait till you were hired and you were a full-time fireman. Well, you're that now.
Yeah.
All right, you got your time, you got your salary, like all this stuff. What are you guys doing? This is what I think. This is how I see it. I think you guys are sitting on something here. Let me help you. Let's tackle this.
Are you for hire, RJ?
Always.
We might need that direction.
And when he says officer vibe, I think it was really more the senior NCO Big Brother vibe. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I
Just
was
give him
like,
the
let's
dad
get her
talk.
done.
Yeah, well, I've said it from the beginning. It's like, yeah, RJ's one of my best friends, but of course I'm going to go to him for just about any issue in my life. You know, we beat him in the ears quite a bit. So, but yeah, that's really, you know, we started really trying to hammer down with it. Me being, you know, it was just me and my brother. We kind of always had that, like, yeah, you know what this is. Yeah, I know what this is. But no one else really knew to an extent. So RJ really did a good job of coming in and just forcing us to talk more about it and forcing us to put it into a groove and really give it direction. So I think it was me, imagine that, on one of my rants where I'm just walking around the house and I'm just throwing my hands up and whatever. And I was like, you know, getting pretty passionate about, no, this freaking Brigands Co. is service before self, integrity driven by any freaking means necessary. And we were like, all right. So there's really like a blank before by any means necessary. It's integrity by any means necessary, service before self by any means necessary. You fill in the blank, but it whittled down to by any means necessary, and that is we hold that very true to being a strong statement.
Yeah, we were like writing down taglines, and Connor had his book out. He had his old regiment Ranger
little green
Record book, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
He's got it in the car right now.
Yeah.
So we were writing stuff down, and I think I had seen it or heard it somewhere before. We're gonna get this done by any means necessary, and I think you both were like, whoa.
It kind of stands out on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
That's it. So.
That's the go-to.
So let's go into the background, because you mentioned several times you being part of 75th Ranger Regiment and such. So where was it was Florida home always?
No, originally me and my brother both we very similar story. He's only a year older than me, so we're twins born a year apart really. And he's the best wrestling partner. He's in my weight class. I mean, we get after it when we're in the same room for sure. But originally from Fort Worth, Texas. My dad was a fireman growing up. Mom worked at a bank, pretty, middle class, nothing too crazy, played every sport we could, and got really into wrestling. Once I kind of stopped growing at like 6th grade, I was like, I don't think football is going to be it for me. So this thing has weight classes. That sounds pretty rad. So we really leaned into wrestling. After that sport itself, we won't go into that too much, but that taught us a whole nother side to mental fortitude.
That probably really set you up for being a ranger.
Absolutely.
I mean,
You're out there by yourself and at a seemingly young age, and it's no one's fault but yourself, and it's no one's glory but your own, so that was a huge, I recommend that to anybody, of course. But coming from that, we worked a summer job, just in the summer heat, unboxing 18-wheelers and palletizing stuff, and in the middle of Texas, and and my brother was already kind of leaning the military route, but not really sure what he wanted to do. My dad was a fireman in the Air Force before he was a career fireman as a civilian, so he always preached the military, but not a combat role necessarily, anything like that. So we were always teasing it, and in between pallets, we were unloading, we were racing to 50 push-ups, and then racing down the concrete bays and stuff like that, and that leaned into our supervisor at the time was a ranger at 175 ACO back in the 80s. Talked to us every day about Panama and Just Cause and all of that stuff, and just that's where we really were like, whoa, I've never heard of that. Like, I only know what the Texas Rangers are. It's more than a baseball team. Like, wow, that's crazy. So we were like, oh, okay. And he was the first one to be like, you guys are crazy if you think you're going to go sit in a college classroom right now. You guys are going to kill someone. I was like, y'all are insane. You need to get into the military. And he would write it down. He'd rip a piece of paper off of the packing sheet and write down everything we needed to do. He was like, you're going to go to OSIT. You're going to look for an option 40. If you can't get that, you're going to be the PT stud. If and that will not fail. Like, you will be the PT stud, and I will make sure when you guys get there. And like, just really mapped it out for us, and that we were sold. Especially my brother, him being a year older. I was a junior. He was a senior, ready to make a move. He made it happen. Everything on that piece of paper started knocking out. And then a year to the day, I left for the Army. So he left March 4th. A year later, March 4th, I went in. And
did you both have option 40 contracts?
No, neither of us did, actually.
So you had to be the PT stud.
I think,
you had the what is it, the airborne X-ray?
My brother had airborne. I had straight infantry. I had 11 Bravo. And because I waited
Way
for
to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
What did you have, X-ray or did you have Bravo?
It was Bravo.
Okay.
It was Bravo.
So that was right before, I guess, they started making it where, because everybody then started coming to X-ray and they may go Mike or...
You could ask for it.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was just
and if
like
that guy was guiding you, he probably was like, make sure you get 11 Bravo.
Yeah.
And not just...
He didn't even want us to go... He was calling us crazy for going without the 40, but at some point I was like, I just got out. I'm not competing in wrestling anymore. I'm not going to sit around for 8-9 months to a year as a civilian. I'm going to go. I believe in myself. And from my point of view as well, so much credit to my brother for paving the way and being the guinea pig there. And he was just shoving all the answers to me. He's like, what are you going to the gym for? Do push-ups. What are you doing this? Put a ruck on your back and just go until you collapse. Like, just do all of these. He was feeding me all the answers. And, I luckily didn't have, I think besides some shin splints and stuff, I mean, going through RASP and stuff like that was pretty simple. I mean, our runs and our push-ups and all that stuff was, I wasn't even going to leave for basic training until we were 400 club and the PT test and stuff like that. It really wasn't any other option but to win.
Well, and if you're good at wrestling, you've got a good wrestling background. The physical nature of, your initial training and even a lot of selection stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you're in wrestling shape, like premier wrestling shape, you're able to do all of those things.
That shouldn't be the problem.
Yeah.
So he was already at 175?
He was, I'm trying to think, he was on his first deployment when I was going to basic. Because I remember we hadn't...
With 175?
Yes, with 175. He was a private at 175 on his first rotation, and I was in basic. And I think that's... us kind of leapfrogging and chasing him around was the longest we had ever not been together. I mean, we were attached at the hip up until that point. So that was another reason why I was every day. It's like, man, what if I don't get, the highest PT test or whatever, I'm going to wind up in Tacoma, Washington. My brother's a beach boy in Savannah.
Yeah.
Like, my parents are going to kill us. Like, they're going to freak. Like, they're not going to be a fan of that, So there was, in a way, there was some pressure on me, just little brother, like, man, well, he did it. I'm not going to be the guy that can't do it, So it was a little bit of pressure, but all in the good way, all good things. So, both ended up making our way down there, and day one showing up to 175, standing outside of staff duty. I'll never forget. Staff sergeant, about big block-headed dude, just like the scariest guy in the world, just walks up and goes, where the hell's Curtis at? And I was like, oh God, they already know my name here. This is not good. And they said, you're coming to Deco. I was like, all right. And I couldn't be in same platoon as my brother, but hopped in the one right next door and had the barracks room right above me, and it was the whole thing, man. It was surreal. It really was crazy to look back on it.
That's so freaking cool. You got to serve with your brother.
Yeah, and we'd see him. He'd be on this bird faster open. I'd be over here, and we'd be high-fiving each other, passing by at the range. And it's pretty wild to think back. Feels almost like a different dream, like looking like a different life. Looking back on it, and you're like, wow, that really did happen. We did do that for a little while. So
really cool. Yeah, RJ, what about you?
Different story, but no. I actually was born in Las Vegas, Nevada, and my dad was at fighter weapons school. He's a fighter pilot. flew 5 different generation jets, 2 tours in Vietnam, one with the F-105, one with the F-4. So we literally moved every couple years. I think the longest I ever lived was in Texas for 4 years, and we moved from Texas to Germany for another 4 years. And I, like in Texas, between soccer and wrestling, those were my kind of sports. And over in Germany, I got into like German soccer. And because of my dad having to live on base, I couldn't go to the German school, but I was on a German soccer team and just sports. And I don't know why you guys were in all those sports, but for me, I wasn't necessarily a book guy. So right. I made grades so I could stay in sports, and I just loved it. I love getting pushed, challenged, and especially in wrestling, especially when somebody tells you you can't do something, or, hey, this is the best wrestler in Europe. Like, is he? Let's go find out, and win or lose, you learn a lot. Like, so I really enjoyed sports and that. And I would say between actually what turned out to be cross country, soccer and wrestling, like that, wrestling was the one. Like, those were the coaches that could see your limit and just ease you past them as the season went on. And they just had a gift that way. And, I found out a lot about myself during those years. And that, you find out, a lot as you go forward in your military career too, and especially in SOCOM. And, like we were talking about earlier, I was raised and around all these fighter pilots. And, especially while we were in Germany, it's F-15. And those guys that's all they do is drink and fly and fight. So, all his friends would say, RJ, what are you going to do when you grow up? It's like, fighter pilot, and everyone would cheer.
Yeah.
And then I just remembered there was a weird point in my life where, I was easing towards that time period where you do make decisions that affect the rest of your life, or at least the next phase of your life. And my dad had to go on a TDY. Hey, I'm going. Oh, where are you going? Spain. What are you going to be doing? I'm on this accident board. That in the news of a fighter pilot, F-15 burned in, and a pilot lost his life, and we're going to go figure out why. I was like, okay. And when he came home, I was like, so what happened? And he said, well, it wasn't a pilot error. It turned out to be a part, and we're going to fix it across, all the planes so it doesn't happen again. So, what we ended up doing, I was gone for over a month, and, it's going to save some lives apparently. And we didn't even know there was a problem. Now we do. So we're going to fix it. And I was like, okay, but something happened in my little teenager brain that was like, hold on, some gasket caused a death that, I was like, all right, maybe I need to figure something else out. And within a couple of weeks, we're in Germany. And so Armed Forces Network, the only English speaking channel in Germany, so you're watching that. So you're watching these TV shows and these military commercials, come on. And, I see this commercial about special forces, and guys are jumping out of planes, free fall, not just static line. And guys are just appearing out of the field, and it's a sniper, and you're like, where did he come from? And, guys are coming out of the water, and I was like, wow, that looks awesome. So,
I actually remember that commercial.
Yeah.
It was a really good commercial. I do remember that.
Yeah, it was right after the GED commercial.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
So instead of a gasket, you just do everything dangerous.
Yeah, all the time.
Right. Well, and really, when I found out exactly what that group was, small teams, if anything goes wrong, it's right on them. And it's kind of like you're talking about on the wrestling mat, like either you did something wrong or you do everything right. And, it was a really cool, and at the end of that commercial, call this recruiter, and my voice hadn't even changed. Like I'm pre-puberty calling, hey, I want to be in Special Forces. And you're like, well, now son, how old are you? And, he's quick on his feet, and he actually mailed me a book list, and he goes, hey, look, we like our guys to be smart, so you got to graduate. So while you're going through school, if your teachers want you to do a book report, I'm going to send you a list, and you can read about us, and figure out more and see if this is really what you want to do when you graduate. But you got to graduate. So that was pretty cool. And
that's very cool.
And I read some of the books, and the more I read, the more I was like, that's what I want to do.
Where was this recruiter located when you're going through this process?
I think he was down in Bad Tolz.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm in Bitburg, Germany, near Luxembourg, and he's like, hey, are you on base housing? Yeah. Okay, go to your kitchen and look at your mail and read me the address, and I'm gonna, I'll write it down and I'll send you a book list.
Yeah.
And, like, he knew exactly. So. I'm sure he talked to a lot of kids who had the same phone call, but it was really cool. And
when you came in, could you come in? Were you under the 18 X-ray? Is that what you came in, or what was the timeline?
You know, honestly, it was kind of funny. Like as I leaned towards high school, we ended up in we moved from Germany to Alabama. I did my 11th grade year there, and then went to Virginia. Mm-hmm. And during my senior year, like at the beginning of that year, I took the ASVAB because I wanted a 2-year Airborne Ranger contract. And then at the end of that, I was going to be like, hey, if you let me try out for Special Forces, I'll sign up again or re-enlist. And so as recruiters, as soon as that ASVAB hits, like they just descend on you, right? You know, in high school.
Not for everybody.
Well,
I was a recruiter. We don't go.
Somebody out there listening, and they just took the ASVAB, and they're like, that didn't happen to me.
Well, so the Marine Corps was just relentless. It was hilarious, and I'm sure that's why they're usually a little more successful than most. But my dad sat me down. He goes, hey, look, your mom and I never asked for anything. You want to go to the military? We want you to go to school. Why don't you try military school? Like, there's these 2-year military junior colleges. Like, you can go for 2 years and then, you know, go Special Forces in the Reserve and Guard while you finish your degree, and then you can go active duty. And I was like, you know, and in my mind, I was like, I do not want to go to college, but it's my dad asking.
Yeah,
he's my hero.
Right.
Yeah. So,
no pressure.
I think he just heard the hesitation in my voice, and he was like, look, I'll make you a deal. You do the initial part and you start school. If it's not for you, drop. And they're going to send you to a 6 weeks ROTC basic camp. So when you go to basic training, you'll be that farther ahead of everybody. And like, that's, you know, that'll help you out.
Yeah.
And you're getting paid as an E5 and you can quit anytime, you know, like just go. That's all I asked. Just go to that first part. And I was like, I could do that, you know? And, I had this recruiter before I left, and I was like, hey, look, I'm going to go try this thing. You know, I'll be back in a little while, and just keep that contract, that 2-year contract. I know you can't save me a place, but that's what I want when I get home. And he's like, all right. So I go off for 6 weeks, and I have a blast. And we had this guy, Sergeant Lilly, and he was our drill instructor, Vietnam, 101st guy, just didn't give a shit who we were. Like, he was just awesome. Like, it felt like real basic training, although, you know, I'm sure he had his limitations, but we had a good time. And when he dropped us, it was for 100 and, hey, go run 2 miles, like, come back, you know, that kind of thing. And I came home and I was like, okay, I did it my dad's way, and now I'm going to go enlist. So I went, and he had a 2-year contract. I had to wait, like, I think it was 2 weeks before I left, which isn't long at all in the grand scheme of things. And as we read through the whole thing, he was like, hey, RJ, this is going to sound weird, and I don't do this very often. I've done it 2 other times, but I want you to go home and sleep on it, and we're going to come back tomorrow morning. If you still feel the same way, I'm going to have you sign it. And don't worry, we'll go through it again in its entirety, so you know I didn't slip, you know, pull a fast one or whatever. But for whatever reason, just go home and sleep on it and make sure this is the right thing for you. So I went home. I was like, that's weird. You know, I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll go in and sign it tomorrow. In 2 weeks, I'll be in basic. And as I was leaving the house, the phone rings. And so I answer it. And this guy was like, hey, is Robert J. Casey there? And I was like, no, my dad's at work. And he goes, hey, is this Robert J. Casey Jr.? And I said, yeah, this is me. What's going on? And he goes, hey, has anyone from New Mexico military called you yet? And I was like, no. Like, I mean, they called me before I went to basic camp, but no. Yeah. And he goes, well, this is Captain Hoppy, and let me be the first to congratulate you. You won a 2-year contract. So, you know, your whole time at NEMI is going to be paid for. Your uniforms, your lab fees, everything. Tuition, everything's covered. I was like, oh, shit, I can't turn down free college. Son of a bee sting. I was like, oh, God dang it. Okay. I was like, well, thank you. You know, I appreciate it. Yeah, free money for college. Oh, great. Woo. And then, you know, I called the recruiter. And he just started laughing. He was like, I don't know why, but I just, for some reason, I just knew you had a different path. And Good luck with everything. Keep in touch.
So he didn't know. He didn't have any insider information. He just had a gut feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And as recruiters, as you know, that's pretty rare. So I was very lucky.
Normally we end up talking you don't really want to be an officer. If you go in as an enlisted first, see what it's all about. Because that way I get the credit right now, and then,
For sure.
So you had a really good recruiter who certainly cared for you.
Like Zen Master recruiter, apparently.
That's crazy, man. That's
and
the universe working for you.
Yeah, and I went to Nimi and I met Gilbert Alvarado, who was the captain at the time, was my first military mentor. Just awesome. Small unit tactics, like you can't get enough of those. Learn the basics. That's your foundation. You're going to be so tired in a combat zone. You're going to go back to your basic foundational training. And he was my first real guy that I can point to. That this is where it started militarily and in special operations for me. Like he's the reason why I passed Special Forces School, Ranger School, and then I get to my unit and that's an early commissioning program. So I turned 21. I took a year off of college, and to be fully qualified as a Special Forces officer, and I turned 21 at the Q course. So super young, didn't know anything, like literally. I had Dave Gallant, who was like this. He was running guns, during the Cold War across the lines, in Berlin, and he's my instructor. And he's like, he looks at me, and all we did was wear rank and cross rifles and name tape, no patches, no nothing after that, and that's after selection. So in the Q course, you actually wear your rank and nothing else, no unit patches, and he was like, "You don't even shave, do you?" I was like, No, Sergeant, I don't have to shave. He goes, "You do now. You're going to dry shave in front of me every morning." And I was like,
"That's awesome."
Okay.
Oh, geez.
That's awesome.
And he made me hit puberty apparently. But no, I remembered. It's funny because all of that, I just felt like a sponge soaking up all this knowledge. These amazing people around me teaching us. And I remembered one of the things he did. First thing, he walked in and he had a broken nose and 2 black eyes. And and it was the Sugar Shack, which if you're around Fort Bragg, you know the Sugar Shack. And it's probably not even open today, but he probably walked in and told somebody to crack him because I got to scare these kids tomorrow or whatever. I don't know. But he walked in and he was probably still drunk. But he threw his beret on the ground, kicked sand in, and he goes, "This beret doesn't mean shit. What you do every day from this moment on is what counts. Like, do not sit back and sit on your tab and say I've made it. Like, you will work hard every day in this career field, and you will do amazing things." And like, he was a super, like, as funny as all that sounds, he was a very positive influence. Along with, everybody I met along the way. It's been an incredible ride, and it still is.
So, what group did you end up going to initially then?
So I wanted to go to Radford University because it had just switched from an all-girls school, and so the ratio was insane. And one of my best friends from high school was there, and while I was in military school, which basically, as a prepubescent boy who couldn't wait to find out about girls, like I was in prison and he was in the opposite. Like he was 180 from where I was. So pretty much. And he was telling me all these stories. Like, that's it, I'm going to Radford. So I joined the nearest Special Forces unit to that, which was 2nd Battalion, 19th Special Forces in the West Virginia Army Guard. Yeah. And Tom Workman, I interviewed with him, and the rest is history. I was there for over a decade, and because I was so young and because I looked like I was 15 and not, an SF officer, I was like everyone's little brother, and just, hey, get over here, kid. This is the radio. This is how you do it. This is how you maintain it. Cool. This is, here's all the crazy antennas you can use. And, and every MOS grabbed me and taught me everything they knew about it. And it was awesome. I just had a blast. I felt very lucky. And even looking back, I still feel extremely lucky to have that experience and to go through the process that way. So
how was that final college step? Was it everything you thought it was going there after it being a former all-women's school?
Yeah, well, so as I was about to start Robin Sage, that same guy, Tom Workman from 19th Group, called me, and he goes, "Hey, RJ, I know you're going to be soon, done in a couple months. it says here Radford University. I was like, yeah. And I said, I'm going to start there in the fall. And he goes, well, we pay for college if you go in state. And I was like, God, not again. So he probably saved my ass, the universe again, just steering me back onto the proper course. And he goes, yeah, well, I was like, oh, you have college in West Virginia. Like, what do you have? And this is the late 80s, so I'm that old. And so he said, well, we have Marshall University. I was like, I never heard of it. And the big story with Marshall, it became a movie with Matthew McConaughey later. I didn't know anything about it. So he goes, well, it's the number 2 college in the country for teaching. So it's a pretty big deal. It's a small college, but Tom, still never heard of it. What else you got? Yeah. And he's like, West Virginia University. And they had just gone to the Rose Bowl. So I definitely had heard of them.
You started burning couches on Saturdays.
Right. Yeah. Go Mountaineers. So I was like, okay, I'll go there. And he goes, well, it's like 4 hours away. I was like, I don't care. I'm going to go to West Virginia University, and I'll see you as soon as I graduate. And so I ended up in Morgantown, West Virginia, and I based out of there for probably like 20 years and had a blast in 19th group. Had a great time. So yeah, wow, that's how I started.
Well, how did you end up getting into like pararescue and all that kind of stuff then? Because you did end up getting into some of that, right?
Oh yeah. So I'm with. So it was kind of weird after 9/11. So I was contracting, and I was working a lot of South America. So Colombia was crazy. And I started contracting, in the 90s. And then as 2000 approached, at the late 90s, I ended up in 94, I ended up having an almost catastrophic injury with my ankle. I was told I was never going to walk normal again. And so I get through that, and that diverted me from my officer path, and I dropped my commission to become an 18 Delta in 19th group and to go to med school. That was my plan. Because I had 11 months in therapy to walk normal again, quote unquote, and during that 11 months of just doing therapy, I started imagining myself going down this medical path. And so when I got back, I had to do a couple of trips as an officer, and I told my unit, my battalion commander, I was like, hey man, this is the route I'm going to go. And he was like, oh my God, are you crazy? Like, you're about to be the support company commander. We're going to put you to staff. Like, you're going to be a line company commander. What are you talking about? And I was like, well, I want to go to med school. I don't want to be God, you just mentioned 2 staff jobs. Like, that's not why I joined. Like, I just almost threw up in my mouth. So I'm going to stay with, like, this still sounds better.
So you should have listened to the recruiter. If you'd have met me, I'd have talked to you, enlisted right off the bat.
There you go. What was kind of cool, though, that those are for official, those initial first 8 years, like, I learned a lot about all these MOSs. Like, I wasn't just an 18 Delta. So, and I had a broader picture of what we're supposed to be doing.
Did you go to E6 or E5 when you gave up the commission?
E5.
E5.
So I was a captain and dropped to E5.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
How does that work when you're already branch certified after like being a lieutenant?
So I show up at the 18. So I timed it. And I ended up doing those 2 trips because they needed me to do it. But also the 18 Delta course was shut down. So they were consolidating it from half San Antonio, half Fort Bragg. Yeah. They were moving it all to Fort Bragg. So I was like, okay, I could do these 2 trips and then drop my commission and then and maybe do some other stuff, drop my commission and start in that first course in the summer of 96. So I was like, I could do this. This could work, So I left. The last thing I did as an officer was they needed OIC. They didn't need an OIC, but they wanted help to run a pre-scuba at 7th group. So, and I knew a bunch of the 7th group divers, and Dave Standridge was there, and Thomas was there, and a bunch of the guys. And I was like, yeah, I'll help you run a pre-scuba, and then I'll come home for a week, pack my crap, come back, sneak into the 18 Delta course. Nobody will know, and then I'll just get through the 18 Delta course. Yeah. Like, what an idiot, right? So I go run this pre-scuba, have a blast with like Mark Geller, Dave Standrich, and the guys, and come home, drop my commission, The paperwork starts. They know they're going to get me in that course because they were like, we need people. Like this course, when it opens up, we need as many people as we can. So they were taking everybody from the Guard to go there, and then all the active duty, and because they hadn't trained any 18 deltas, and they were already short. And then they stopped the process for a year. They needed people. So so I show up, and day one, and I looked at my orders, and the big thing is it the right course date? And is it the right course? Like that's our state wasn't exactly, paperwork guys. So I just made sure those two were correct. And I didn't read, my name's on it. So, I'm good. I didn't read everything. And I should have, always read the fine print. So at day one at the course, we were in there, and 2 hours in, and it's all intro stuff. Hey, here's the instructors that are going to train you for the next year. And, here's the deal. And this is the broad strokes of the curriculum. It's going to be brutal, but you guys can do it, whatever. And all of a sudden, this big ginger E8 kicks in the door to the classroom and goes, "Who the fuck is Captain Robert J. Casey?" I was like, "Oh my God, how did that happen?" And I was like, "Oh God, I can't believe this." He goes, "Well, where is he?" I was like, "I'm Sergeant Casey." He goes, "Are you Sergeant Robert J. Casey?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Were you, Cap? Get out here." And so we get in the hallway, and I tell him the story. I was like, "Hey, I just dropped my commission. I want to go to med school, and I want to stay in the Guard as an 18 Delta as I go through this crazy process. I want to stay on the teams. I didn't want to do staff." He goes, "You're an officer?" And I'm wearing an SF and a Ranger tab, and I didn't wear anything else. I was Halo and scuba, and I just wanted him to just leave me alone, and I didn't really care about the other stuff. And so he's like, "That's pretty cool. Go back to class." I'm like, "Bro, you just outed me. Am I gonna go back?" So it was almost like a prison movie. We go on the next break, and 5 guys kind of close on me. "You're an officer," and it turned out they were we had 4 former officers, to include a lifelong friend of mine, Aaron Hawley, was in that class. He goes, and he led the charge. "You were a freaking officer?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, and he started laughing. He goes, "I was too. I was a captain in the 82nd. I was like, "What?" And they all told me their story. And he goes, "Did you drop your commission and go to PA school?" I was like, "No, I'm going to med school. I just want to stay on the team as a medic." And he goes, "Huh, okay." And then the next break was for lunch. And they were like, "Hey, and I jump in a car with Aaron and 2 other guys. And they were like, "Hey, where do you guys want to go to lunch?" And one of the guys was like, 7th Group Chow Hall. And I'm like, what are the odds the dive team's in there? No, we always ate off base. No way.
Yeah.
We walk in, and they're at the first table, the whole freaking dive locker with another dive team. They're like, "Oh my God, whose general daughter did you I was like, "Oh my God." And I'm literally wearing E5 rank. So it was pretty funny.
That is funny.
So,
what a great story.
Yeah, that's
funny.
how I dropped that first commission. Yeah.
Wow.
So as far as the Air Force stuff, though, that was so as an 18 Delta, I went on a couple of trips to the Middle East. I kept kind of doing really small contract stuff, and then after 9/11, I went from Colombia to start going over to Iraq, Afghanistan. By the time I processed as a direct contractor, and they were like any indirect stuff that was going on, they were like, "Look, we need to move everybody now. We need bodies. You're all going direct." And we're like, "Okay, yeah, that's sure, whatever. Our job doesn't change, and you're going to pay us more, right?" "Yeah, you're going to pay because there's no middleman now." I was like, "All right, yeah, sounds great." So after about a year of deploying with them directly and going to Iraq first and then back and forth, Iraq and Afghanistan, they were like, "RJ, you got to get out. You cannot be gone for a year to 18 months with 19th Group. You've already skipped out on one deployment. They're not going to let you do it again. You need to just cut ties with those guys." And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I like the Guard and I like the guys. I'll tell you what, let me try and figure this out." So I went to PSYOPs. "Hey, how long is your deployment?" Same thing, year plus.
Yeah.
Civil affairs, same thing. I was like, fuck. So I end up at a crash site in Colombia, South America. And Rob Trexler is this former 7th Group 18 Delta. And so he's like, and I'm telling the story. "Yeah, I guess I got to get out. I don't really want to." He goes, "Man, go be a PJ." I was like, "Dude, I can't go active duty." He goes, "No, they have Guard and Reserve." I was like, "Really?" Oh. So I looked into it, and sure enough, And so I interviewed up in Alaska and New York, and my first question over the phone before I flew up and interviewed and took a PT test or whatever was, hey, how long's your deployment? And they're like, well, that's the thing. You're going to have to be gone for at least a month. And I just started laughing. I was like, seriously? And they're like, yeah, our deployments are a month minimum. And if you want to stay longer, if you volunteer, we'll let you stay up to 3 months. But after that, you have to come home. And I just started laughing. I was like, dude, this is awesome. This couldn't be any more perfect with that contracting.
It's like a la carte warfare. Just come and get some and get back and whatever you need.
Yeah. And so the average PJ, he deploys anywhere from 4 to 8 months now. And you can, but in the Guard and Reserve, we have so many guys that want to deploy that you can split the shift. So if we're in charge of an area of operation for 4 months,
you're
you can
picking
go for
up each
2.
other's shifts.
Yeah, you can do half.
It's like a restaurant. Like wait staff, man. Hey, man, can you cover me?
Yeah,
Can you come in a little early for me?
And I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you right now. Between Special Forces, PJs, and other Special Operations MOSs, like if you're on active duty and you want to get out, like I don't think there's a better, softer transition to go into a reserve unit or a Guard unit, or to even start that way. Like there's so much flexibility. There's no way if I'd gone active duty as an officer or even 18 Delta, there's no way I would have been Halo Scuba. No way. But I was in a Guard unit, and I had a relationship with, the guys that I just made sure my, Halo Scuba physical was current. And I called once a week. Hey, anything going on? Any schools, any deployments, any trips? And I would just bug the shit out of them. Yeah. And sure enough, like that's how I got both Halo and Scuba. Like a guy broke his arm, and one guy, he's like really nervous about missing his sister's wedding, and boom, like we'll send you. Yeah. So yeah.
Man, you've like had a guardian angel, or at least somebody, I don't know if it's guardian angel, but some kind of protector along, like guiding you along the perfect path.
I was going to say you really played the system, but that's a better way to put it. That's amazing, man.
Whatever happened, I like I said, I feel very lucky, and to be surrounded by guys like that, just all that experience, like, and I'm just walking in, just literally, Gallant was right. Like I hadn't even started shaving, and these guys are like giving me decades of experience at every corner. So I think being open to different opportunities and, and wanting to learn and being curious and like, I can't wait to learn more. And hey, what's next? And trying to look, that 1 and 2 levels above you, and how do we fit in, and where's this all leading? I think being, curious and open to stuff like that leads you to incredible journeys and places. So
yeah, you had that open mind, open spirit, and somewhere along the line, the stars were aligned in making sure that you were being taken care of. Are you still in the Guard?
Yes, I'm a traditional reservist. So I'm on my 3rd commission as a combat rescue officer with the Air Force. I was a PJ with the New York team, the 103rd Rescue. They were freaking awesome out on Long Island and West Hampton Beach. So you went back and got your commission. Well, I was up in New York, and I was just gone a lot with my civilian job, and they were like, hey, man, we love you like a brother, but you're gone a lot and you're red a lot. Like, why don't you go to the reserves as a part-time reservist? Officers have a lot less currencies. Like, what do you think? Because, dude, you're red a lot. So I was like, I'll check it out. I don't mind. They were like, yeah, we actually need officers. It's a very new career field. And you were an officer before. Like, it shouldn't be that big a deal. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it I don't want to make you guys look bad. I'm here, like, if I'm helping, yes. If I'm not, I probably do need to go. So, yeah, let me go check out the Combat Rescue Officer career field and see where it leads. And so that led me down to Florida, and I was close to my parents during their final years, and it just worked out. Like, I live in New Smyrna Beach. I met Dylan and Connor, and, here we are. Like, it's all led to really cool places.
Now, when you got your commission back, you weren't obviously able to go back to captain, so you had to, were you? What?
Yeah,
they did.
Yeah, they did.
Oh shit!
You're like, God, I hate this guy.
This dude is a carbon copy of 4187 from the time he joined to the time. Oh wow!
Yeah, it was fun in New York. Like when I went, I did drop a rank when I went from E7 18 Delta to physician assistant. They're like, well, you're an officer before. We have this like VA math that we're gonna take, quarter time.
VA math. I love the way you described that.
It's just something I didn't understand. But I walked back on as an officer for my second commission as a physician assistant, as a first lieutenant, and then to go to New York and sign in there. I couldn't be an officer because there was no part-time officer slot. So I went back to enlist, and they're like, "Hey man, you're a Ranger 18, the Ranger tabbed 18 Delta physician assistant, and you're going to be a PJ here. Like, you're a halo jump master and a dive soup." So we actually need new blood at the E7 level. We're not going to take a stripe or even two from you. Like, are you okay with coming in as a E7? I was like, hey, as long as you know what you're getting. I don't know anything about Air Force regulations or how you do business. I do, however, know about rescue because I was on a CSAR team in Colombia as a civilian, and that was an amazing package, and I got a lot of great experience for a couple of years down there. But as far as the Air Force goes, I'm not going to be an E7, maybe on paper, but that's as far as it goes. And if you understand that, I have no problem. Like, nope, you're an E7, Shazam. Wow. So, yeah.
Now, if they'd have done the same thing as an officer and said, all right, let's see, calculating back, you were a captain, so about right now you'd be a lieutenant colonel, so we're going to give you full bird, because...
No, it didn't happen that way. No, in fact, I thought they would make me a captain, day one captain.
Yeah.
And so after I signed into the Patrick team, probably like 7 months later, they were like, hey, are you ready for your major's board? And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like a captain. I just started. Yeah. And they're like, no, you're a captain with 2.5 years in. So in 6 months, you're going to be at 3 years captain or major. And I was like, dude, I haven't done squadron officer school. I haven't I'm not ready. No. And so it's
too bad. We're going to give it to you anyway.
No, they didn't do that. So you have to do your PME. Like, there's no getting around that. And I hadn't. So I took a hard pass on the first go, and the second time was fine.
That's so crazy. Wow. So getting back to Brigands, what was the genesis then behind the name? Because people, when you look it up, it's, a little bit of bandit,
Well, it comes from the Abrams Charter, so it wasn't supposed to be. It's kind of what me and my brother and our kind of friends at First Bat used to get called, like, as a derogatory. Like, we'd finish up, a long range day or whatever, or MLAT, and we'd get home at 6 a.m. and we'd run to our barracks room, and we're like, hey, Tybee is going off right now. Get the surfboards. Like, let's go. And, everyone was like, look at these a couple brigands made it through the ranks. These guys, like, what are y'all doing? And, like, it was a joke, and we used to be like, man, I know it, if, apologize for the misquote, but something along the lines of, if it's composed of any hoodlums or brigands, it shall be disbanded, so it's not used in the best term, but we used to joke around and always be like, everyone here is a brigand, man.
Yeah, that's
how many of you got into fights this weekend and alcohol related and all of this stuff?
That's the funny part about that, right? Like, no hooligans and brigands. Like, what?
I was like,
do you know what a Ranger
here
does?
So that's
we need those guys.
Exactly. I was like, those are the guys that win wars, man.
Yeah.
So that was our take on it. And we were like, we have A Co, B Co, C Co, D Co. What about Brigands Co? We're starting our own thing over here.
That's awesome.
And that's why we went back with the original diamond, and kind of pay homage to that. And it was a very much, if you know, you know. And I see people are like, what is Brigands? And I'm like, you've never even heard the term brigands
like,
before.
That's how you say it.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't correct them so we can sniff them out.
Exactly. So little things like that, we were like just kind of leaning into it, and then over the years, it's turned into the honor amongst thieves, and so it was a little bit of a play on words and a little bit of irony there, but that's what sparked people. I think I wore it to work before PT one day, and even my squad leader was like, "Where did you get that shirt?" And he was like, that's funny. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of funny. And he's like, but it looks sick. And it's, so before we knew it, we were selling these t-shirts in the schmedium size to all the Rangers, working the door at Rail Pub and, all that stuff. So that's kind of where it took off. We had, everybody was wearing the white brigand shirts in the gym and the black brigand shirts downtown. So that's kind of where it took off at. But
that is so cool. But I've noticed that you also gone to a different setup as well.
So originally, we were talking about this earlier, just kind of even remembering how The original logo was me and my brother. We grew up. I think even honestly, walking the streets of Savannah at night. Walking home or all the way back to Hunter Army Airfield. That's about a 4.5 mile walk alone. Coming back home from the bar. I kept a switchblade on me all the time. And that's where it originally started, that greaser style, I think someone had like a stiletto blade on them and, protect your ass, right? And that's kind of how it started, just the original logo. And then if you want to talk about kind of bringing it into the Fairbairn Sykes.
Yeah, they told me the story behind the switchblades, and it was kind of a Savannah thing, first bet thing. And I was like, hey, why don't we go a little broader? Because my resume brings in a little more SOCOM-ish stuff, and let's include as many units as we can initially, and we'll just kind of grow from there. And I said, man, if we really go back, the cross switchblades were hard in my brain. I was like, actually World War II is Fairbairn Sykes daggers. If you had one, you were in that unit.
It's in our logo.
Yeah.
And we didn't do the cross because of the wings, and it would just been way too much.
Right.
So we just did a single.
Yeah. So we, and part of it was like our branding and thinking about different things. And as we worked our way into building a website with some creatives up in DC that does the Third Option Foundation website, we started figuring out what that was going to look like. And the guys in DC, the guy who helped design our website, our initial website, was like, hey man, that's World War II history. Let's make sure that nobody can sue you for anything. So I'm gonna tweak this. I'm gonna make the hilt a little more narrow. It's not gonna look exactly like if you had one in front of you and you looked at your shirt. It's gonna be a microsecond off, but it'll save your ass in court. Yeah. And we're like, yeah, sure, go for it.
That's probably smart. I mean, there's a lot of, that goes all the way back to the commandos that trained the Rangers at Carrickfergus and, the very early when we started modeling the different, special operations units. I mean, that's a long, long storied history of the Fairbairn Sykes fighting knife.
From Rangers climbing the cliffs to Wild Bill Donovan creating a unit out of thin air, the OSS, jumping behind enemy lines and getting it done, and, sabotage and the whole, the World War II era and the mystique of it all. And that's the foundation of special operations as we know it. Yep. And the Central Intelligence Agency, he went off and created that later. Yeah. So
you'll see it. You'll see it on the SF patches. You'll see it at the Ranger Memorial on Fort Benning. I mean, it's everywhere. Once you see it, you're like, oh, that's what that is. And there's a million Chinese knockoffs you can find at flea markets and stuff for $5. Don't
I
mess
own them
with
all.
those.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So that's kind of where the logo came from.
No, it's totally cool because for our logo, we had a guy that served with me, and he came out of Ranger 3rd Bat and everything, and he was doodling all the damn time on a tablet. And so I reached out to him years later when I started the podcast, and I go, can you take some concepts I kind of have in my head? And he hand drew it and then sent them to me. I've got still the hand drawings of all of this. And I'd play with it and I'd go can you, maybe do this or do that or whatever. And then he converted it. And so I now know that this is a trademark. Somebody can't say this is something. No, this is hand drawn, and then turned into it. And you're right. It's very important because there's so much stuff out there, you know,
for sure.
Knockoffs, so you have to be so you haven't done the cross arrows yet or anything. You haven't convinced the guys that,
this seems more personal to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think it just hits a broader audience.
I love it because of the story you just said. I think the cross arrows have been
it's special
overused.
Forces.
Right.
And I think it narrows that lens to special forces only. So when you see crossed arrows, it's special forces, Green Berets, whatever you want to call them. It's that element. And we just want a wider audience. And we love the history behind it. Wild Bill Donovan would have freaking, World War I.
Yeah.
Medal of Honor recipient. And he's a big part of a couple other things that we're into. So,
it seemed
we just like the history.
The most broad as well, especially now because we're, me and my brother, or myself, I'm no longer in the military. I'm not a part of that community anymore. So I deal with a lot of the civilian side of it, but it's also bringing the same concepts to the special operations mentality or the things that we've learned along the way and bringing that to a broader audience and pushing that in everyday life. And, you know, again, it felt a little bit more all encompassing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I don't think there's a modern symbol that I can think of that would really work like that either. Like I'm trying to think like, we don't use bayonets. We all carry a different kind of knife. There's so many on the market. You can kind of tailor it to what you need. And I can't think of like the diamond is immediately recognizable. And
for sure.
And I think it's even on a subconscious level because of Saving Private Ryan.
Right.
I mean, that's like that's the World War II movie.
The amount I referenced that. Look at their sleeve. Yeah.
I mean, they did pretty good.
Yeah.
On that one, right? From like a military advisor perspective, they really nailed that. But I mean, for
Tom
the
Hanks' compass was tied down, by the way. When he pulled it down.
That's right.
It was tied down.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how realistic it was.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, and I was like, "Wow, they made Tom Hanks tie his compass down." Holy shit, that's crazy.
Dummy quarter shit. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
it is true though. I am one of those guys that watches a movie, and if they don't have their stuff in order,
eat it up.
you lose me. I'm checked out. And my wife would be like, "Come on, just hang in there," and I'm like, "Nah, I'm already out. I'm already
Give
out."
me one Chef Boyardee beret and I'm out.
I'm like, I'd rather put on Harry Potter.
Yeah. Or the one that gets me, and it sucks because like there's a lot of old movies I like, and it's just so hard to watch anymore. The guy's like firing from the hip. Spraying. I'm like, that guy's not cool. He's not cool, man. Like he's supposed to be cool.
Well, and mentally, that just stops you in your tracks, man. I am not taking one more step towards watching the end of this because I'm just pulled out of the story. Yeah. Like you really have to fight to get back in it when something just grabs you like that. And
it's rough.
I think, you know, for me, the first movie I ever saw that just grabbed me and it was like, they freaking nailed it. And it wasn't the details because I didn't even notice them because they were all right. It was the culture and the guys giving each other crap, and it was Black Hawk Down. I was like, whoever advised on that was awesome. And I remember I had never watched the credits on any movie, and I'm a huge movie fan. And in Heat, I stayed for the credits because I was like, you know, the holes in the cars were way too big, but the shooting and moving, that sequence and that firefight. You know, shoot, move, and communicate was on point for Heat. And I was like, okay, who did that? And I looked, and it was Andy McNabb, who wrote Bravo 20, was the advisor on that. And I was like, I mean, everything was right about that scene, minus those holes. Everything was right. They stopped all the ambient noise, and you could hear them breathe. You could hear them shoot. You could hear the magazine hit the street when they were changing. Like everything was just on point. I was like, okay.
Well, that movie still holds up.
Yeah.
Like a lot of movies from that era. Yeah. Like,
Val Kilmer's work with the 249 was good stuff.
I like that. I did like that. You look at it, but that was the same time that like the John Woo films were out, and like those are freaking awesome. Like Desperado was out, but you watch it now, and it's
you're like,
so
you get pulled out.
theatrical that you just. You can't blast a guy across a bar that slides 15 feet with a handgun and they're throwing.
Well, you can,
bullets.
But only in the movies.
The movies. Yeah.
Exactly. But for guys like you know, they just drop straight down, and that's not. It pulls you right out of the story. Right?
Hopefully.
Yeah. If you do it right. Yeah.
Well, you guys are now reaching out, and you know, you're talking about creating this brand. You've now created a community that's following along with you guys, I think, through this journey and starting to broaden that a little bit more. Now that you're starting to hone in and nail down what Brigands is, I can certainly see it, how it's starting to take off. And I'm fangirling. I love what you guys are all about and what you're doing and everything. And you've branched out into, you know, because you've gone and followed your father's tracks and, you know, gone into firefighting and those types of things. Now you're starting to embrace the LEO market and get that, which is great, right? But then, RJ, you went off and just kind of did something totally different and creating another network, I think, too, with the other work that you're doing in studios and that type of work, because you recently did you've done several movies, but you recently did some work on the Amazon Prime, Jack Ryan. And so what got you into that whole space?
A long time ago, I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And
you need the number of that angel or whatever that keeps getting you.
I was I had just graduated PA school. I finished at Fort Benning. My parents were living at Marietta, Georgia at the time, so that was like hour 15 up to Marietta, and I could see them. And my grandmother was living with them, so I wasn't in a hurry to. I was actually thinking about staying in Georgia to be a physician assistant, and as I was finishing, one of my buddies was like, "Hey, you're gonna do Best Ranger again because you didn't get to finish the first time you went." And I was like, "Yeah, I would love to, but I'm graduating, in September. I got to figure out what I'm gonna do next." And he goes, "Yeah, let me think about this. I brought you over as an 18 Delta. I don't think I can get you over as an officer PA. Let me figure this out." So he calls me a couple days later. He goes, "Hey man, there's a gap between the two active duty PAs. It's 6 months. It's from December to May. Like, Best Ranger, please say yes." So I was like, "Oh, definitely." Yeah. So I was like, "But you're gonna have to call West Virginia, and you're gonna have to, by name request me, and then you're gonna have to MIPR the guard money, and you're gonna have to figure something out. Like, it's a lot of work to do that." He goes, "I'll get it done. Don't even worry about it." And I was like, "All right." So sure enough, by the end of the week, he's like, "Hey man, orders are in process. You from December to May, you've got a job at 4th RTB." I was like, "All right, cool." So I did that. So unbeknownst to anybody at Ranger School, and probably even 3rd Bat, there were two, like, you've all been to Fort Benning, Georgia, like that little freaking army town. It's like tattoo parlors and like used car lots.
Yeah.
And I love Georgia, but Columbus is a little different. That's definitely a military town. There were two huge productions going on at the same time. So when you were at the Chickasaw, like, you saw Josh Arnett, it was crazy. It was Black Hawk Down, and then the 3rd Bat was supporting them before they went over to Morocco to film. And then for Ranger School, it was We Were Soldiers. Yep. So it was Mel Gibson and Sam Elliott and Barry Pepper and all these. So all those casts were in town, and all the crews to shoot it. And we shot a lot at Fort Benning before they went out to California to do all the Vietnam scenes. But it was interesting. So we were in a battalion meeting, and like, I had no idea about any of it, like either production company, and I didn't think that way back then, and didn't really care. And I was just getting ready for Best Ranger, and we were in a meeting, and they were like, "Hey, Kirby and Casey, you're gonna go take this crew through the Darby Queen." And I was just
so you got voluntold for this.
Yeah,
this is amazing.
Definitely voluntold. Yeah. So, anyways, that was kind of my first look into the production, and so we took Mel Gibson, Barry Pepper, and that whole crew, the initial cast, the NCOs and the officers that were in the story in the movie. We took them through the Darby Queen. Me and Jamie did, and Jamie is like really tall, and I'm the short guy. And there's two different ways to get through the Darby Queen, and like Dylan and I go through and we attack every obstacle the same way. But if you're a tall guy, you do it a little different. So we showed them both ways and took them through it. And then the next thing I was on was Terminator Salvation, and hit it off with Christian Bale. Was amazing. Tom Struthers, who's still a great friend. In fact, he's in Morocco right now. He was on Jack Ryan, and he got me on there. And he goes, "Hey, I want you, and I want 2, maybe 3 other guys. I'm not really sure what this is going to look like, because we already have a military advisor, but I want you as part of the maritime team, and I need you to bring somebody else." And I was with Force Blue doing a turtle project down in Big Pine Key, right next to Key West.
Like sea turtles.
Sea turtles, yeah.
Okay.
And so
awesome.
we were capturing green turtles and loggerheads, and tagging them, taking their blood, taking their measurements, and putting them back in the water. And so we were doing an AAR after that day, and Tom Struthers calls me, and he's like, "Hey, I know this is short term, but can you come out? Can you come out to Budapest in a couple weeks? Oh, and by the way, can you bring a couple guys?" And I was like, "Well, what is this project? What are you looking for?" And he goes, "Dude, it's Jack Ryan. I know you want to be on this." And I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, for sure. What are we going to be doing?" And he told me, he goes, "Well, it's you're not going to be the military advisor like normal, but there's this guy, Kevin Kin. He's a Navy SEAL, and I think he's bringing one guy. I want to bring 1 or 2 guys." And he goes, "But I need a maritime, SOCOM, agency background, so I can sell it. Like, I want a resume like yours. And I'm like, you want anything else? Like, you know, do you have any, can you be more specific? And he started laughing. He goes, no, just do your best, man. Just send me whatever you can. So, and I was looking at a room, CCT, Navy SEALs, Marine Recon, like they were all in the room. And I was like, hey guys. And it was at Force Blue, it's a really fun group. Like, every resume is insane. Like, all those guys have crazy stories. And so I was just looking around, and Kaj Larson was the only guy who fit it to the T, but I had a CCT, and he had a background, and Jeff Gum, you know, Single Life. Yeah, and so I had all these guys, and I knew Rudy Reyes. He was already committed to a show, so he couldn't go. But it turned out to be me and Kaj linking up with Paul Thoma and Kevin Kent for the SOG team for season 3. And then Tom Struthers was the second unit director, and John Krasinski was amazing. So it was a lot of fun. That's the start, and that's one of my last projects I was on.
Now, is this getting roped? Is this being pulled into as part of the Brigands brand as well? Or are you guys looking at getting Brigands as the parent company?
Well, no. So it's nothing formal with the guys, but one of the things that we started early was, in fact, we were in a bank when Tom Hardy and his producing partner called me to work on a show called The Things They Carried, which there's a really amazing script, and they had it all set up, and it looked like it was going to be a go, and at the last minute, just kind of projects fall through all the time, and that was one of them. But we were sitting in a bank, Bank of America, and we were about to open up our business account for Brigands Co. as I got our business license, our EIN number, and now we had to get this bank up and running and start dropping money in it so we could, you know, start getting after it. And they called me and they told me about the project, and I was visualizing it in my head, and I was like, man, you're going to need a pretty robust pre-production training workup.
Oh yeah.
A lot of, you know, basically you like this element in this cast. It focused on a squad, infantry squad. And I said, but, you know,
so
at
it was
the end
going to
of
parallel the book pretty closely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
very closely. There was a couple tweaks, and I still didn't know why they did those, because they included them, but different members were saying them.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was kind of weird. But it followed the book extremely close. And I had read the book a couple times. You know, when we were in IBC, we used mandatory reading, and then SF school. That was one of the books.
If you're looking for something to read,
Yeah.
The Things They Carried, I mean, that might be the most important book to read about Vietnam. If you want to understand the infantry side of things, the combat side of things, it's just phenomenal. One of the best books I've ever read.
Yeah.
Do you think that project may still go forward at some point?
I mean, I know everybody I worked with on it up to the point where it got dropped hopes that happens, because it would be amazing. It would be a great film.
That's one of those ones that it's got to happen, I think.
Yeah,
like the universe is going to make that one happen, because it's just so well written, and so the author's name escapes me at the moment, but he was an infantry captain or maybe lieutenant in Vietnam. I think they were Army, right? Not Marines.
Yeah, it was straight up infantry.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
But I was sitting there, and I was like, and we were kind of all three talking about what it could be. And so I was like, hey, man, I think, you know, the world has enough cliche veteran-owned T-shirt companies. Like, what if we're a consulting company? Because I stepped away. These are the guys I was just talking to, and I was talking to them about this project. I have to have a pre-production training, and then during production, I want mentors for each actor they've already got the actor list, and it was almost like going to be the new Rat Pack. Like, all these actors were very up and coming, and they've, you know, a lot of them, over half, it was almost like Black Hawk Down. All those guys just blew up. Right. You know, it was amazing. So that was kind of what everyone hoped would happen to this cast, and to tell this incredible story. So I was like, you know, I'm going to need mentors. And I was picturing Connor and Dylan, like, as part of the core element. I was like, we got to go do this. Like, this would be awesome. And we can we need other guys. So what if we're a consultant company? What if I try and get more guys, like, on SpaceX stuff and movie stuff? And, you know, what if we start, you know, bringing more guys into Force Blue and different things that,
also looking for the people that that need it too, that are getting out of 15-year careers at whether they're at the pararescue unit or they're coming out of Ranger Regiment and they just got their medic license and stuff like that. We're kind of, where can we choose the right people that we can pay that forward and just get them in front of the right people, and then like just let them start to network themselves. But as you can tell, not everybody has fallen into some things like RJ has. So it's like, hey, if we can, if they do need a couple people, like, hey, let's go through the Rolodex, and hey, this guy really he's looking for something big, and he's got the certifications that, that reflect that. So let's get him in front of there, and maybe we can lead him down the right path. And next time we can use someone else and kind of keep shuttling people through.
I think that's really smart, and I found an effective way to help the veteran community at large is just if you can help someone upgrade their network. You talk a lot about your network is your net worth, but it's hard if you're from a bad neighborhood in Brooklyn. Absolutely. And you go off and you do these great things in the military. You come back, well, your network at home may be just what you found in that not so great neighborhood. So if you can get them in front of the right people, and now you've got a friend that you took him sailing. Now he knows a guy that owns a yacht. You got him a gig on this.
Yeah, it's about giving people the fishing pole.
Thing.
You know what I mean? Instead of the fish, it's like, hey, we're gonna try and give you all the tools and get you in front of the right people, and then you keep that, and then
often that collaboration works out better than if you're just like, okay, this guy needs X, we'll give him X. But if you let that service member collaborate with that civilian, or maybe it's another veteran, they can figure out amongst themselves a better path for that guy, and it ends up being more organic. Usually they find something more suitable if it works.
This is, to me, like an easier transition for military, because you think about it, we do a hell of a lot of acting already on active duty, I mean, when we put on the uniform, right?
Acting like I care about this award ceremony, acting like I'm going to show up to your change of command.
You take off the uniform at home, you're a different person than when you wear it on the on set, and you go through the days, people tell you where to be. That's your producer and director, and the whole bit, and so it seems like a somewhat easier transition, especially some of them probably are not actors in the sense of having to read a script, but just be there, do this.
You know what? I think the military community is so comical, and like when it's go time, they're 100%, 110 even for some of the guys. And then, when it's time to kick back and relax, like everyone does everything more. Like when he was talking about going to college, like they don't have that fire in their eyes. Like, none. Not a chance.
Like,
you go to
guys with our backgrounds can just flip a switch like no other profession. You know what I mean? Yes. So I think that plays a lot into it.
You can't wait to have fun. You can't wait to get after it. Like, and everything in between. So, and that's, when you get on a movie set, it's funny. It's kind of like high school. There's different departments and they have different personalities. And guys like us will always kind of defer to the stunt team. They're just hilarious. And that's, you saw it yesterday. We're on a track and we're just spinning cars around, and Eric, like, he's a former firefighter, and we met on the script, we met actually here in town at Black Hole Studios on Venom, the Tom Hardy movie, and he was like one of the main riggers and one of the main stunt guys, and
really
he was on Extraction too. And it was funny, you said, it's kind of a natural transition. Let me tell you how natural this last one was. We're on Extraction 2. Sam Hargrave's directing. Patrick Newell brings me on it. He's this amazing, I was telling you about him earlier, like he came from Brooklyn, and like his dad was FDNY, and all his uncles were NYPD.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He gets into producing, and years later, after he's done a lot of shows, I meet him through Kaj Larson, the whole SOG team from Jack Ryan. We just flew over to Prague to, take a break from Budapest, and we had like a week off. And so he and Kaj was like, hey, we got to go meet my friend Patrick. So we go over, and Patrick is there for pre-production on Extraction 2. So it's the Chris Hemsworth Netflix series or sequel for his, Extraction 1 was pretty amazing, right? So they're going to top it with Extraction 2. And Patrick's like, hey, I met him a couple times during that weekend. And on the last time before we flew home the next day, he was like, hey, RJ, Kaj was telling me something about your background. You got a minute? I was like, yeah, sure. We'll lay it on me. What's up? And he goes, well, I'm doing this movie. And I said, yeah, Kaj said Extraction. The first one was awesome. And he goes, well, yeah. He goes, man, it was crazy. And nothing against set medics, but like I can't believe we didn't kill anybody on the first one. Like, and I'm hearing about these stunts on the second one. Like, we're going to land a speeding helicopter onto a speeding train in the mountains. Like, I'm scared to death. What do we,
what's a bad day look like?
Yeah. And he goes, hey, I'm thinking of bringing you on this. And I don't know what your schedule is, man, but like, I think we need help.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, and he goes, well, like, what could that look like? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm picturing, when you describe it, I'm picturing a helicopter full of people crashing into a train full of people and rolling down the mountain until whatever stops it. And God knows how long that is.
Right.
And I said, I'm thinking about, 2 rescue crews, 2 rope systems, one to secure the aircraft to the mountain so it doesn't go again and go any further. And then another for rope and crew to, like, we got to put the fire out. We got to uncrunch the people that are, pinned.
Right.
If they're alive, we're going to get them to the right surgeon as fast as possible, and hope it works out. Yeah. But he goes, oh my God, I didn't think of any of that. What am I going to do? Right. So I was like, hey, actually, I'd love to help with that. And I said, but he goes, well, just so you know, I didn't budget for any of this. And I was like, well, just so you know, it just can't be me showing up. Like, rescue, that's a team sport.
Right.
Like, I got to bring the right guys. And so, paying it forward, there's 2 guys in town on Electric State with Patrick Knoll. One of them's Brandon Forshaw, was one of my team leaders. Awesome guy. He worked for Rocco for years, went around the world training, actually confined space and all types of rescue, rope rescue, mountain, any environment. Like, he and Dave Johnson, who I brought over both on that movie. Dave Johnson now works at Det 3 for NASA, and they rescue astronauts. And so they have to figure out how to do that and all that craziness and all the different environments those capsules and ships can land. He's doing that. And Brandon's here on Electric State as one of their main safety guys, along with Tim Anders, another PJ I brought. Yosuel Garcia was the 4th PJ on that Extraction 2 team. And their military job translated directly to what we did for that movie. We were on alert, ready for anything. And luckily, they didn't need us. I mean, we were always ready for the unthinkable, worst case scenario, and they just knocked it out of the park. And because in between those really, really dangerous stunts, they were put on the stunt team to do different things. Brandon was an armorer for a whole month, and we just had a blast. And because those guys were open and, hey, how does this work? How does that work? And curious, like, they got to do a lot. And I was like, man, you guys are so spoiled. Like, you're going to be SAG eligible after your first show. It took me like 4 feature films to get that. And you're seeing all these departments. Like, you're really getting into these departments and doing all these crazy jobs. And so, I hope we can get a lot more guys on to shows like that. And Gray Man 2 is coming up, Extraction 3, there's Combat Control, there's so many projects on there. I mean, even projects that are still in script form that I just picture, not only bringing a lot of veterans on, but who knows where that's going to lead. And
projects aren't stopping anytime soon.
No.
That's incredible, though. I mean, what you guys are building and how you've taken the skills and the network that you guys have had and applying them in different ways, because you can tap into even the firefighter safety community for some of this. Yeah, you can tap into guys you served with in the past, and all this. And it's a great way to look at the brand and find ways to pivot to where it is that you can maximize your background, your network, your experience, and tie it in, to make it work. It's really cool what you guys have done. Going from T-shirts to what we're describing here.
It's pretty insane. And to bring that, not just that knowledge and curiosity, but that fire to it, and and working hard and just trying to make things better and being curious about, hey, how can I help? Like that. I remember being on the set of Inception, and all of a sudden one of the, A-list actors just falls over. And the set medic was like, oh, and I'm standing there with Tom Struthers, the stunt coordinator on that show. And he's, a stunt coordinator for Christopher Nolan. So we've done a lot of shows with him together. And I feel very fortunate. He's one of my favorite directors. And, but this actor just fell over, and they said, "Oh, I know what this is. This is altitude sickness. It happens all the time. You know, I'll take care of it." And Tom's like, "Is that what you think?" And I was like, "No, we're at 7,000 feet. There's no way it's altitude sickness." Right. And he goes, "Well, what could it be?" I was like, "Tom, that could be anything from a freaking brain tumor that nobody knew about to a hangover. I don't know." Yeah. Turned out to be a hangover, but thank God, right?
It was Ellen Page, I know.
Yeah. No, I don't know about that, but that's a whole, I'm not divulging that.
No, I only say that because she's the most unlikely. She didn't seem like she would be.
Dude, actually, she was a rock star. Like, she was awesome. And I know it's Elliot Page now.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
But never, like, first take every time. Like, and she was opposite the highest paid actor on that show, who it was so freaking cold. Like, he had somebody read words, like not a whole sentence, words. He would repeat them, and they just edited it later. She did everything first take, first time.
Wow.
Rock. Like, I at the time, I had a weapons little thing with her for a couple of minutes, and then and then I went away, and I came back a couple months later, and she was like, "Hey, RJ, how's it going? Like, remember my name?" Yeah, she was awesome. Anyways, I digress.
No, it's all good and stuff. And so what I want to do, though, is for those guys who are listening, or gals that are listening to this and want to find a way not only to support you guys with, buying your T-shirts or whatever the case may be, but if they may be interested in the path that you guys are now going down and want to be a part of this whole community, how do they find you guys?
Yeah, so easiest for us is at Brigands_Co, I believe it is, on Instagram. Take us right to our website. Website's brigandsco.com. Me and RJ both have our personal accounts as well. You can find them or not find them. That's there. As far as what we're doing, we're more focused right now. Obviously, we have a lot going on RJ's side of things, but on the day-to-day, it's really pushing that service before self. Get out in your community and start trying to really inflict change that you can touch with your own two hands. That's one thing in 2023 we're really trying to. Me and my brother have talked a lot about, hey, we've got this following on social media. We've got these people wearing these T-shirts, and we are very minimal with our designs, very simple, because they were originally almost like a uniform. It was the Brigands Company right after Deco and Eco. You know what I mean? So it really was like almost our PT shirt or anything like that. So we've kept it really simple, but especially in our, Volusia County, Florida area, you see somebody with that T-shirt and it does mean something. And, you're almost vowing that you're going to be the leader in the room when you've got the Brigands Co shirt on. And that's one thing that, we want people to keep in mind when they check out on the website and stuff like that. So, support us, going to that website, checking out the Instagram, keep an eye out for anything in especially our area. We're going to try, and we've been working with some other companies as far as community meetups and stuff.
I was just getting ready to say, you guys just did a cleanup out there in New Smyrna Beach and stuff. So I was going to ask, is there a way for them to link up with you guys to do some of these things? And
Again, I stay pretty up to date, learning every day with the social media stuff. I try and keep it as up to date, whether it's the stories or posts or, making any sort of announcements of things we got going on. I've been in contact with some people just in our area, trying to get some help over to organizations that are already existing, like United Way and stuff like that, that are just people in our community that, a big thing I was talking to RJ about earlier was I'm finding it a little bit annoying now, and I get it from myself as well, of just people that just complain about the world these days, whether it's the government or foreign policy or my own town or any of this stuff, and they're not doing anything about it. And I started to look back and is like, how often do I do that? How often am I like, bitching and moaning about the world? And, we do have this following, and people are subscribing to this Instagram page and these black and white photos and these T-shirts. It's like, what are we doing with them? We're gathering these people that are all saying, yes, I love what you guys are doing. I love what you guys are saying. It's like, let's get these people together for something good. And the easiest thing for us is January 1st, keep NSB clean, an already existing company or nonprofit needs help cleaning up fireworks and junk off the beach after New Year's Eve. Like, hey, how about 15 guys in Brigands Co shirts show up and just help out your organization.
The fact you guys did that on New Year's Day so early, I was impressed.
It was at 7 a.m. We were like, hey, the people that show up at 7 a.m. right now, these are the real
people.
OGs. These are the people for sure. So little stuff like that we're really trying to get into. Like I said, the community and public service is, you know, I think the way I described it earlier was I want these Brigands Co shirts to, if you buy them in California or Maine or Oregon or wherever the heck you're at in the world, I see them as little embers that go out there that can spark a wildfire in any other state. And that's what I really want to push is
looking for chapters out there then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, it's about scaling the mindset of it. You know what I mean? Yes, we have Dylan and Connor and RJ, but man, what if we had 30 of those guys and they're all over the place? Like, you know, kind of pushing that mentality, and anyone can do that. You know what I mean? So that's really what we're trying to lean into this year. And it's the easiest with us, with the first responder and the LEO community and stuff like that. So that's.
I'll tell you another thing too, is that, like, I know this is a military centric, and you know your crowd is getting wider by the day. So congratulations on all your success. And really, thanks for having us on. But I think the other thing too to keep in mind is I think we're all trying to spread goodness to different things. So if you're, like, we know single moms with 2 and 3 jobs and kids and like this crazy life, just kicking ass and crushing it. Like that's what we want more of. That's what the world needs more of. Yeah. You know, not just, you don't have to be a firefighter. You don't have to have former military. Like you can be anybody. And if you feel the urge, man, join in and do some goodness.
Regardless of what our current jobs or our backgrounds are, or whatever community we've been affiliated personally with, it's like, there's a reason why we changed our bio on our Instagram to highlighting those who set the standard.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, whether you're, do what you love and do it honestly. Like that is the only thing Brigands Co will ever care about. So whether you are the single mom, whether you are the special operator, whatever you're doing, if you can promote the best of yourself in whatever field, let's get a shirt on your back and spread that fire for sure.
I like it.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Good stuff, man. Appreciate you both coming on.
Thank y'all so
Can
much.
I ask you guys that next time you're around in town or something, you let us know so we can do something like this again? Because I can certainly see us having this kind of conversation again for like another 2-3 hours. Seriously.
Absolutely.
It felt like family coming in. I really appreciate you guys coming in, man.
A long time coming. Thank you so much, and congrats to y'all's success. Like I said, you guys were the first podcast I ever listened to when I got my first civilian job outside a regiment, and you guys helped me through a lot of things over the years. So I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate that kind of feedback, and I can tell you that it's folks like you that made us what we, you know, and I mean, you know, by you guys following us and listening and telling other people about it, we've grown all organically. I don't spend, you know, money out there advertising and stuff like that. It's by word of mouth. And so thank you for going out there and doing that to help us.
Absolutely.
So,
Long-time listener, first-time guest.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks
Great
again,
meeting you.
Yeah.
Awesome.